we had a member of the Applebee's meeting at the end, and I framed the napkin. It said blood, sweat, and tears. And we all signed it, and that's framed in our office.
There you go. We all know what blood, sweat, and tears are like in this room.
Okay, good afternoon. We're going to talk about collaborative fundraising today, and I'm always so pleased to be with my fellow colleagues. You know, when you speak of, if you're talking to a board or other groups, you can get kind of nervy about it all, but here with colleagues who are doing great things in their communities, working with great causes throughout Western North Carolina, it's a real honor to be with you today, and being with you at this time is always a special occasion. When Annie and I talked about this topic, I think it was last fall, and we were thinking, this is a little bit of a quirky topic. It's not like major gift fundraising, or when will be a good time to do it? And so we thought, well, maybe in June might be good, because everybody's wrapping up their successful years if they're on a June 30th timeline, and they're getting ready to go into the summer, and they're just going to be idling and just relaxing all summer and doing their R&R. What a great time to talk about collaborative. They can talk with colleagues about it all summer long. So we chose June, and now if kind of paradoxically, I always find, and I suspect you do too, that the summer is the dadgum busiest season that we all have. We always plan to do all these great things that we're going to do, and forever it's so busy, it's hard to get it all in. So I know your lives are very busy, but we're going to insert collaborative fundraising into your mindset today. So let's see what our friend Kim Klein, how she defines collaborative fundraising. And I'll read this. A joint effort of two or more groups to raise more money than either group could alone. From Kim. That's how we define this today. And to help with that, we've got some handouts. And we've got Chad who's going to bring those around. You're going to be getting 4 handouts. One is a list of perspectives from 6 major donors, many of whom you know in the area, who've commented about collaborative fundraising. And maybe you can recognize their voices, but they're anonymous. And the second is a series of examples about real-life collaborative efforts that have taken place from 1990 to 2014. So these are real-life collaborative examples that we'll draw on some of these today as we go through this. You'll also get a Midland Gives worksheet, which describes an operational fundraising initiative in South Carolina that allowed charities in 11 counties to all go online and raise funds together in an amazing collaborative one-day effort. And we'll talk about that as an example a little bit. And then, while you're making your grocery list there at your table, you've got a little worksheet you can actually doodle on. And it's a little half page, and it allows you, if you'd like to, you can think about what's the big vision that your organization has. Is there a partnership possibility, a collaborative possibility with it? What would be the challenges? And afterwards, we'll hear from Amanda and others about. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see what if others would like to share their big vision idea, and just thinking outside the box a little bit, if it in fact could be possible. So, the premise today is. And also, if anybody wants this presentation, we'll email it to you. I can send it to Chad or whomever, or you can email me and we'll send it to you. So feel free to use it if you'd like, or just change the slides, whatever you need, and go for it. The premise today is kind of based on an observation. It seemed that over the course of the years we've seen a lot of collaborative fundraising, but it has not happened intentionally. Rather, it has been driven by pragmatism and necessity. Sometime during the process, somebody said, "Oh Lordy, in order to get this done, we got to pull in somebody," and that kind of ended up being the way it was done. In years past, it wasn't even called collaborative fundraising. There wasn't a name for it. It's just like we're connecting with so and so, and we're going to work on this together, maybe joint fundraising or partnering. But my interest in this topic is, what if we are more intentional about looking for opportunity to consider and pursue collaborative fundraising and build this consideration into the front end of your project visioning and planning. So with that in mind, let's get into it and see where it leads us. Chad, appreciate you putting this together for us, this technology. So Andy talked about giving from the USA Giving Trends. I just want to talk about the competitive nature we're in, the competitive, and reinforce that a little bit. As you know, I'll just touch on this lightly. $337 billion was raised in 2013, an increase of 4.4% over the last year. It's the fourth year in a row that we've continued to increase from 2009, when we were at 316 billion. These numbers are probably on individuals, foundations, bequests, and corporate, probably ingrained in your mind. Individuals still in the 70 range, foundations still at 15, bequests are keep peaking a little bit, and corporations at 5%. Can you see that? Paul, can you see it? Yeah. Good eyes. And so the big winners in this, education grew by 8.9%, health, environmental, animal-related grew by, and arts. It's good to see arts getting an increase there. Grew by 6 to 8.5%. And interestingly, giving to religion and by companies continues to slow. And the wealthy are becoming more confident to give. I think we're all beginning to feel that a little bit, thank goodness. And then who is benefiting? I like this quote. And this is the Atlas of Giving. When stock values are high, it makes a huge difference in the amount of money going to education. It kind of gives you an idea that donors to education are definitely, well invested. But it has little or no impact on religious donations, which rely a lot on small gifts from individuals. So it's just kind of interesting that some of the groups are not participating like others in this recovery. In terms of more context on the challenge of fundraising, in North Carolina, did you know that in 2007 there were 86,000 nonprofits? That increased to 91 in 08, and up to 105 in 11, and 13, 108,000. That's a 26% increase in 6 years. That's a 26% increase in your competition in 6 years. We are living in a world of competition. Robust growth for nonprofits in North Carolina. Now 10% of the workplace is made up of employees of nonprofits. 400,000 paid employees. In the United States, 44% of the nonprofits plan to create new positions this year, while only 20% plan to freeze, reduce, or eliminate positions. We are growing. So the challenging conditions that lead to this competitive environment, there are more nonprofits vying, obviously. Nonprofits are doing okay with operational fundraising. You know, if you think about your own operational fundraising, you probably stemmed the tide from the Great Recession, and your organization has shrunk, or you've managed to stay sustainable. You've got your organizational revenues in place where you can maintain, hopefully. But gosh, to take that next level of service to the community, or what you'd like to do in terms of a capital campaign, aggressive endowment, raising major gifts to take the organization to the next level, that's a tough proposition, probably still for many of us. And that's the conditions we live in today. We have to be careful about taking those next steps. Harder to get donor attention. We all know that. Do they read emails? Do they read the newspaper? Do they come to functions? You know, how do we continue to get our messaging out? In spite of the stock market, still cautious mood among many major donors. And nonprofits are very careful about overreaching and setting the fundraising goals. And this brings us to the rise of collaborative fundraising. Again, the joint effort of two or more groups who say, heck, this is awfully tough. So they get together to raise more money than either group could alone. And so let's look at this at a historical context, and this will bring some down memory lane a little bit. In 1960 through 1990s, those of you who remember capital campaigns, remember we actually had to come into this room, this very room. You would have to go to reserve your capital campaign to qualify for it. Ruth, you know this so well. You'd have to go and present your case after giving a formal application to the United Way, and they would call you in, and you'd bring you would dress your very best, all suited up, everybody. You'd have your board chair, and you'd have your major donor go with you, and you would be talking to the heads of all the corporations, or a lot of them in the area. They would review your application, ask you tough questions, and determine not only if they recommend you could have a campaign, but when during the year that could be. Wow. And that's because they really wanted to guard that blackout period when the United Way, you know, when corporate giving kind of ruled the area, and they wanted to guard that United Way blackout period, which we obviously applaud the United Way and great things they do. Then we call that season 95 through 06 open season. Everybody started skirting it, kind of saying, well, we don't really care about the United Way giving. We'll, you know, their money, we'll go at our own, or we'll just carve off this much. And finally, the United Way say, to heck with it, we're not going to do, we're catching too much heat. We're not going to do this anymore. So it was open season. And from 95 to 06, there was a proliferation of capital campaigns. Came out of the woodwork. And then we know there was some major challenges with a number of capital campaigns, and the Great Recession hit, and then there were no capital campaigns from 07 to 2010, by and large. Western Carolina finished theirs in great, I know, Brett, so they went over goal, and they were all unbelievable. So, and then 2011 comes, and we've really got this challenge of, can we do a campaign? If so, how do we do it? And so there's great consideration. They're really scoped well. There's a lot of pre-planning, and there's a possibility of maybe we can do this collaboratively. So let's explore a little bit more about collaboration, the why and hows of how it might work or might not work. What collaborative fundraising is not. And it's really not teaming to support a worthy project where there's no direct benefit back to the organization. Groups have to have skin in the game. You've got to have more of a traditional campaign, not just giving money to a group or giving personnel to assist. And fundraising by budget allocation rather than actually fundraising. We're talking about traditional fundraising in today's presentation as we go forward. So let's look at the first example. Seaponds Montessori School back in the 90s, Hilton Head Prep, late night. It's on your sheet there. Those two are right together if you've ever been down to Seaponds. As you go in, Seaponds one road, Seaponds Montessori is on one side and Hilton Head Prep is on the other. They collaborated on a capital campaign for a new entrance and an auditorium that they could both benefit from. A common facility and entrance. It was successful due to a big common goal. They needed that auditorium, that meeting space. There was no place where they could meet as a community, and the entrance was atrocious, and they really needed to improve their branding identity. And so they came together. They had that big common goal was a top priority. Everybody knew it. It was an umbrella that both organizations could get under comfortably, and they knew it had to be done. The strong leadership, I still remember Mr. Escaravage was his name, and he was the board chair, and he had a great relationship. They both with the board chair and the two heads, the heads of the board chair of the both institutions all got together famously. There was humor, there was confidence, there was respect, and there was a strong kind of business planning to getting this done well. Pretty impressive for two kind of small institutions. And then they actually defined, they laughed about it, they called, we're going to the war room to create the rules of engagement. And they really put in writing how they were going to allocate funds, how costs were going to be allocated. What if someone restricts the gifts? Which priorities get accomplished first? And they put that on one sheet of paper. And I wish I don't have the rules of engagement, but they were simple things, but they really helped define how this was going to work. And this is how it looked. So you really had, prospects from Seaponds Montessori and Hilton Head Prep, and they really had Hilton Head Prep had its obviously prospects, and Seaponds Montessori had its prospects. And then there was this group in between that had maybe experiences matriculated from Seaponds Montessori to Hilton Head Prep, or they were community folks that they could both see. And there was really, they were siphoned into a different prospect evaluation and assignment committee by a joint solicitation committee that really worked under the campaign steering committee. And it all really went rather smoothly for both institutions. And so each of them had kind of their own campaign going through their constituency, but then they had this jointness on certain select ones where they had a commonality. So this is the caution from Jonathan Howard, co-founder of Cause and Effect. Joint fundraising is probably the most difficult form of non-profit collaborations, and the results are far from certain. I think the risk-reward perception is still not where it would need to be to make it attractive for most. That is a great word of caution, because there have been some monumental failures and disasters. And so you do not want to go into this lightly. And thank you, Mr. Howard. So a major donor, local major donor here in Western North County confided, talking about collaborative fundraising. We once did a collaborative gift to a well-known project that was the beginning of the end of the place, as the agencies fought over control of the funds. Kind of like throwing a stake over the fence at a dog. Now that was, so that was one where obviously the situation was not working well. So collaborative fundraising works well when groups share this big, audacious, bold vision that they just got to have. And they often share a similar culture and often size. And this next one, commitment to joint planning to work through the issues in advance. They really can't have that entrepreneurial mentality. They've really got to have that process mentality to get through this upfront planning, to do it right so the wheels don't fall off halfway through the process or at the beginning of the process of fundraising. And trust. And the trust has, no question about it, it's got to emanate from very confident board chairs, respected leaders who really win the day and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do it together, and it's going to be great. And add humor, confidence to it. Ensure that good feelings permeate. Develop a written agreement about the money and labor, and are perceived to be equally invested. Okay, so even though you're collaborative, you've got to pull your weight to the capacity you can, and not just sign the agreement and go through the motions, but really not carry your weight on the implementation. And then allocate how funds are how funds raised, or agreement on how funds raised are allocated to achieve campaign objectives. That's going to be in the objectives in the written agreement, but that's something that really needs to be. You want to make sure you've got that down pat. Annie, do you have a question?
Yeah, maybe. Do you mind taking questions?
I'd like to go through it, but
No, that's fine.
but for you, Annie, let's have questions at the end for sure, and want to hear your stories. And I know you're working hard at your desk on that worksheet, so feel free to complete those, and then we'll hear from Amanda and the rest of you about this after. So example 2, this is a North Carolina community college, wants a manufacturing and training center. And a manufacturing training center, this was an amazing process, very collaborative. So it's a big vision. It's a game changer for the county, because right now in this particular county, and this project's going on right now, there is manufacturers cannot find the workforce, qualified workforce in this rural county for the terrific high-paying jobs that the manufacturing companies now can offer. And so they're really going back to the community college and saying, and we're all getting together and saying, let's have a training center, let's get the schools in here and have the kids taking the right math and science classes beginning in elementary, middle school on up through high school, begin using this training center, and we're going to change the culture, the economic development, and of course the workforce, so that we don't have to go, because there's a brain drain now where the qualified kids are going to Charlotte or Greenville or wherever for jobs and not being and not wanting to stay in the county. There's not enough of them because their moms and dads have told them that because they remember the old textile factories, and they said they're awful, don't ever work there, and they're not familiar with the new manufacturing environment, which is clean, high-tech, and really very cool. So they're trying to change this paradigm in this county. A lot of you are nodding your heads like you have heard of, right on track with this scenario. So this Advanced Manufacturing Training Center is the big vision that these partners, collaborative partners, schools, Chamber of Commerce, industry, county, can all get behind, and great leadership is going to be a part of it. So this big vision, keep repeating that, is probably the most critical factor. Big vision compels everyone, organizations and donors, to look beyond their own capabilities. We can't do this on our own. It's sure going to be a lot better if we can put away our concerns and really look at the possibilities and work with this other group to do it. So when it works well, the rewards must be greater than if each group had attempted it on its own. And there's an amazing, I mean, the market benefit, you know, your mind can just kind of wander into these possibilities by collaborating. Let's just take UNCA. Say UNCA's got a big campaign going on, and another group is trying to have a campaign too. It's hard to, you know, it's hard to get that media attention and all that, and get some elbow room at the table against some terrific competition and other great projects out there. But if the project is able to come together where there's several groups that have really good credibility, they start getting a more marketing, PR visibility, and more elbow room at the table for making their case to their donors and to the community. Collaborative fundraising allows groups to access a larger audience and donor pool. And joint fundraising arm, you talked about that subcommittee of the campaign steering committee that really works on the joint fundraising, generally works to identify, cultivate, and solicit joint prospects. And it's always tricky when you have like 1, 2 donors who are just like, they are my donors, you know. Am I going to put them in the hopper? You know, how does an organization do that? So you've got to be able to talk about this and say, and reach agreement as how you're going to solicit so-and-so who's been a major donor to this organization, and share this project with them in a way that's going to allow them to come forward and give to the joint project, and where funds may go to something that's not exactly in line with that particular organization, but it's good for the umbrella group. Always tricky to be able to share that information, and the rules of engagement can be able to talk about that in a way that allows groups to come forward with that in those conversations. Each group solicits their own prospects, but certain donors are solicited jointly. A lot of times for those special donors, they really aren't solicited jointly. They really, you allow that group to go on. These two, you go solicit them, we understand. But sometimes you think they're your donor, and the other group goes, ha, they've been given to us too in a major way, and we want to be a part of that conversation as well. So, and then able to access bigger donors and avoid nickeling and diming. This comes out in those comments. So I think this is what, there's a number of things those major donors were concerned about, but this is one that they liked, is that a smart project that is collaborative, that lifts, that improves the livability of the county or the community, is something that they are interested in hearing. And they would end up being more supportive of that if a group came forward in that capacity, rather than having to maybe give 2 or 3 gifts to each, if each of them had the same request. To give one larger gift would be particularly appealing to them, or they may just give a major gift because they're so impressed with the collaborative nature of it. But what I didn't find, just in a cursory interviews, was the major donors being really concerned about collaborative fundraising. They really said, in spite of some of the challenges we all know, they really said, yes, we listen to this. If thoughtful groups have gotten together and it all comes together for the community, it's going to make the community better, dang right we'll listen to it and see what, and be glad to give even more to it as a result, if it makes good sense. So example 3, this is that handout you have, Midlands Gives. This was really amazing. I ended up giving the AFP talk, this talk to the Midlands AFP down in Columbia on May the 6th, that very day, of all day, imagine it. And they were having this 11 county collaborative operating fundraising project that, as you'll see, it's a local 24-hour, online's the key. It was online. So it encouraged everybody to kind of get comfortable giving online. It was presented by the Community Foundation. Some of you know Mac Bennett down there, the Community Foundation of, let's see, he's United Way. He used to be Community Foundation, but it's Joanne Turnquist is the head down there. And they were able to market it because they got a lot of donors and sponsors who came in and gave bonus gifts that if you reach certain benchmarks, you were able to qualify for bonuses. And so any gift of a participating nonprofit in the 11 counties will go to further let's see, to I can't read my writing. Further thanks. But anyway, it would go to it would be divided at the end of the day. So they just divide it up at the end of the day. And of course, it's a big idea, kind of a big audacious idea. Let's all get together. Very low risk. May was an interesting time to do it. I bet this is going on in your head too. You're thinking, interesting, May. A lot of people on a June 30th calendar. It wasn't interfering with your major gift request on maybe the front end of the year. It was getting new donors, and it was probably giving a lot of donors to give again. So it was a great time to give, and it was kind of teaching them to get comfortable giving online. So go to that website if you like and check it out. It was an interesting idea, and it raised what I liked about the kind of the philanthropic aspect of it. It really heightened the awareness. It was the buzz in Columbia. What's the number? And they were tracking it, you know, Twitter and all this stuff. They were tracking it all day long. They thought they were going to raise 600,000, ended up raising north of 900,000.
Wow.
So that was really, really impressive, and a lot of buzz about giving to philanthropy. Just kind of time when you're looking to raise kind of end of the year folks. So when collaborative fundraising does not work, when you don't have the resources to meet the campaign readiness steps, you know, this is besides if you don't have the big vision, this is in addition to that. So if you don't have the resources, so you really don't want to skimp on the process of moving into this thoughtfully. You really want to make sure you have the time, the luxury of time and resources to do it well on the front end. The fear of losing donors, if folks really aren't going to share and collaborate, then it's just not going to work. And you've been in meetings probably where you've tried to get groups together sometime in your career. You've seen it where groups they sit on one side of the table and the other group sits on the other, and they're not going to get together. And you can kind of feel the chemistry, you know, in the room and early on, and the tea leaves are there. You can kind of read them. So it's a sense that you got to get an idea early on if it's going to be have a chance for a go or not. Finding the right groups to work with. I know this is the tricky one. You know, if you're kind of in a specific niche, it's hard, if not impossible, to do perhaps. And then lack of commitment of time to collaborate. It does take a lot of front-end time, and the collaborative time is time sometimes people don't want to spend as much time on the collaborative part as they do on their own stuff. So just making sure that's well understood. Boards and staff do not trust each other. Such a key one there. So we really, you know, it's just amazing how in those situations you start hearing comments or hearing stuff and you go, oh, we got a problem here. Cannot agree on who to solicit jointly and how to allocate funds raised. Those are the kind of two of the big ones that would come up. In summary, what makes a difference? So we've really gone through this, so we're summarizing here. The big vision, the strong volunteer leadership that is confident and insists on trust. Humor really helps. And when the groups know that their major donor prospects like collaborative fundraising, that's a huge motivator. If you've talked to your major donors, you know, in the feasibility study or in early conversations, and you're getting the green light that, hey, you know, if you got together with them and y'all were able to do this and bring in those groups to partner, that would be really cool. And that gives you the fortitude to be more confident in continuing. Keep the collaboration clear and simple. Try not to have too complex of an organizational chart as you go forward. Advanced rules of engagement. So these are really the big 5 that you got to have to make it work. And then the last example is a really cool one. This is going on right now. There was just created in Buncombe County a Friends of Connect Buncombe. Anybody heard of that organization yet? All right, great. So they're getting going, and what that is, you've got the see if I can name them: Hominy Greenway, the Black Mountain Swannanoa Greenway, the French Broad Greenway, Wilma Dykeman Greenway, and the one UNCA going up to town Greenway, I think Reedy Creek. But you've got a couple of greenways, and imagine if they were all asking the donors for support. And so they said, this is going to be a train wreck to raise the millions of money we need. So created Friends of Buncombe, of Connect Buncombe. And they are going to, then everybody's going to try to get under that umbrella, and all the Greenway groups, the Asheville Greenway groups, all get under that. And the goal is to raise a nucleus of funds, and that's going to be really working with the counties to raise maybe some millions of dollars, possibly through some DOT transportation grants and some of those. And then from that, they can have matching money that if French Broad River is going around the Silver Line Plastic, area, that out to the business park, they can then match that money use that as a match to help for that group then to match with their own private donors. That's the concept. But you can see how that works, how that could work. So this is one that is going on now. They're going to try to get DOT Tiger grants, block grants, of various kinds. So there's lots of things you can collaborate on. I just list these here. Joint campaign planning, the advanced project and community assessment, advanced PR and marketing. These are things that the Greenway folks are doing that right now. They've got a little bit on case development, feasibility study, campaign coordinator, office and back office. The Central Carolina Community Foundation provided the back office for that Midlands Gives project. So that was a really helpful deal that they helped coordinate that. Cultivating events, lead gift solicitations, grant writing, PR marketing, campaign events and celebration, and project management. So there's a number of ways you can collaborate as you go through this. And then this organizational chart never, of course, is as simple and clear as this. But say you've got a lead organization A, and then you've got B and C organizations, or your partnering collaborative groups in there. You've got a campaign steering committee, and they're represented on the campaign steering committee. And then each of those groups, you've got a campaign coordinator, director and coordinator. And then you've got some, the phases. Each group could go through its own constituencies and have a a typical fundraising campaign. But then off to the side, you've got the joint funding committee, and you've got prospect evaluation, lead and challenge gifts, other identified prospects to be solicited jointly. And so that group is really working on this. And there's got to be really good communication throughout all that effort. So that's where we are. We've gone. I think that the key from this is, I'm hoping that this is interesting to you, and that as a result, it might be something that you work into your plans for your next fundraising a project that you have a major vision, a project that you say, you know, let's think about this in terms of, is there a natural collaborative partner we could bring into this, or a way we might do this differently on the front end, and possibly be more intentional as you go about consideration of how you go forward. So I've got this presentation, and I'm glad to send it out as you like. Amanda, tell us what you got. No, I'm just kidding.
No, actually,
Okay.
I have the basis of something.
Really?
A really close partner with the Red Cross. We provide training for them. They provide training for us. It's just a really interesting collaboration that we have, that looking at it at face value, you say, really? You're going to collaborate with them? It doesn't make sense, but the executive director and I have been talking about how we can really make this happen, that we have a lot of similar donors that are giving to each of our organizations at the same level, and it really makes sense to work together to see how we can even increase that giving level from those donors. So we're trying to put something in place for September.
Way to go. Will you kind of give us a report on how it's going?
Absolutely.
Did
As
some
long
of
as
this
we can
stuff
get
make
both of our-
sense? Did
our
some of this
boards-
resonate with your conversations?
Yeah, fortunately, she and I have a really great relationship, so we're not super concerned about who gets the money, who doesn't, but it's more about showing the community that we don't care necessarily about who gets the funds from it, but what we're doing to make the community even better together.
Thank you. And we're coming to you. I know you got a question.
Oh, okay. A couple things. Maybe it's in here and I don't see it. In the Midlands example, do they specify how the money's going to be split up? I mean, if you just, what do you do about restricted donors is my basic question. Do you allow, you know, is it proper to allow restrictions when you do a collaborative project? I'll give, but only if it goes to my side.
Yeah. In most cases, they do a lot. I'm speaking beyond Midlands. They do allow it because they figure that the unrestricted, you know, the unrestricted balance is going to make up the difference for those other projects, and there'll be restricted donors for the underfunded projects, hopefully, that
Right.
unrestricted can go to. Anyway, but on the Midlands project, visit their website for the details.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't have the right answer how that money was divided, but I do feel like you're able to restrict it. That's
All
my
right, one
sense.
follow-up. Most of your examples were capital projects. So I think just heading in, I mean, Amanda, that's not a capital project Amanda's talking about, but on the surface it seems that's where it would, that wonderful thing about the two schools needing a community center was just a perfect example.
Yeah. When it works that well, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. You know, if you get it aligned that well. Don't have a lot of examples on annual, and maybe annual is really a little different because you know.
What's the big vision?
Yeah, what's the big vision if you're going to underwrite your operations? So thanks for thinking through that a little more. Yeah, Jess.
I was going to mention, we're on here obviously listed on the capital side, but we have a great collaboration on the, I guess it's considered annual, but it's more considered just broad-based fundraising. It's not tied to capital. We have a collaboration with Mission. We co-developed a program around, we already have a diabetes prevention program, which is very strong and having national results that rival other sites nationally in the country. But we wanted to look at people that are already living with type 2 diabetes, which right now nowhere in the country is that really happening. And so McDowell Hospital, which is a part of the Mission system, and our Y Incorporating came together, and we co-wrote a program and then took that to KB Reynolds, and they recently funded that at over $400,000. We also took that program to Missions IRB and are going through a medical study with it right now.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great project.
And it